My name is Steve Valdes-Robles. I'm a senior attorney at the Nature Conservancy. Our project is the Cumberland Forest Project. The Nature Conservancy has been very focused on climate change. It's one of our top priorities. And our science tells us that natural climate solutions can meet 30% of the Paris 2030 goals. And within that natural climate solutions, forests are the largest opportunity within land management to sequester carbon. And we've done a lot of work and a lot of science study on carbon and forest management. Our work indicates that proper and changes to forest management can actually have a huge benefit on climate change and adaptation. The problem is that the commercial forestry business harvests trees when they reach financial maturity, not biological maturity, which means that when it means that they can make enough money, they will simply cut down those trees, which might be only 30, 40 years, even though the tree's natural life from biological maturity could be 100, 150 years. And what that means is that there's younger trees in the forest which don't store as much carbon. And there's also effects on biodiversity because old forests have a different biodiversity profile than younger forests. And so what we are trying to show and what we're trying to do with this project was show the timber industry that you can grow a more mature forest. So our project is a investment fund that is operating similar to what a traditional timber fund would do, except that we are employing these natural climate smart solutions into how we manage it in a way that commercial forestry does not. And so what that means is that we're incorporating different aspects to make revenue that have benefits for the environment. So for example, we are doing recreational leases so that people can enjoy the forest without cutting it down. We are selling carbon credits in the carbon offset market so that there's not the same financial incentive to cut down young trees because you can continue to have revenue from carbon market. And various other strategies like that that mean and are meant to demonstrate to the timber industry that you don't have to cut down the young trees. You can let them grow to maturity. And when they grow to maturity, there's also other benefits. So when you cut down a young tree, not a lot of that wood is going to be used for durable wood products like wood beams or wood floors. Instead, it's going to be turned into pulp and made into things like tissues and toilet paper, which, all very important uses, but when you think about the climate impact, it's quite different than if you cut down a really large and mature tree. That tree can turn into wood furniture or wood floors, which means that you still are sequestering the carbon that was stored in that tree in the first place, versus because it's there sitting in your house. And that carbon is still stored in that wood. But with the pulpwood products, you throw them away after use. So there's really, when you shift how you manage forests, you get a lot of these flow-through effects that are really important for mitigating climate change, but they also improve biodiversity because an older forest can support a different range of biodiversity. And so it's a combination of doing all these different things that we're doing, and we've done on philanthropically financed property in the past, but the timber industry doesn't really have a lot of interest in what a philanthropically managed property looks like. They want to see that they can make money. And so our fund, although it's looking to do conservation first, we're trying to also show that this is a viable strategy for the much larger timber industry. We created what is essentially a private investment fund that was used to raise both equity and debt capital in order to buy about 250,000 acres of forest in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. That's also a really biologically important area. It's one of the most biodiverse places in North America. And with climate change, the forests in the Appalachian Mountains are going to be a really important safe haven for a lot of species. And so with this fund, we were able to attract about $130 million in debt and equity, which we used to buy these forests. And what that shows is two things. One, it shows that investors are willing to invest in a climate smart strategy, which in and of itself is important to demonstrate to the timber management industry that this is a viable strategy. But more importantly, as the fund continues to operate and manage these forests sustainably, we want to be able to show the industry and share with them our learning so that they can see that, yes, this is an economically viable model that also has all of these many different important contributions, both to mitigating climate change, but also supporting local communities with things like recreational opportunities and all those various different types of strategies that make this both good for the world and also something that people are willing to put their capital towards as well. So lawyers were involved from the very beginning. The Nature Conservancy is a nonprofit. We don't typically do funds like this, but we are not interested in becoming an investment advisor. That's not what we do. That's not our purpose. And so lawyers were really involved from the beginning in helping us to structure this in a way that is consistent with our nonprofit purpose, that is consistent with our goals of conserving the land and protecting the land, and it's not going to expose us to regulation that we as a nonprofit are not really suited to do. At the same time, we were able to design this in a way that is impact first and come up with a number of strategies so that the fund could work both from a ability to attract the capital needed. And I think it's worth mentioning, there's no way we could have bought this with donations, right? 250,000 acres for $130 million. That's just a huge, huge scale. And donations aren't enough to do something on this scale. And so this was a way for us to also protect a huge swath of land with a new financing form. And so lawyers from the very beginning were there to help us develop the structure, to mitigate legal risk, to do what's called blended finance structure, and really design the whole project hand in hand with the conservationists. And the lawyers had to work with the conservationists and the forestry people to understand what's needed, to understand how to accomplish that, and then design a structure that could do it. We were focused a lot on securities regulations and private equity rules and real estate, obviously, in buying this land, carbon markets and carbon matters. And all the sort of suites of things that go along with that. In part, it was obviously to ensure compliance, and in part, it was also because we were operating under certain exemptions in order to do this. And so there was really just a lot of legal issues, and of course, the nonprofit tax-exempt legal considerations that we as a nonprofit need to always remember and take good care to observe. I just want to thank the team at Cleary Gottlieb, who were instrumental in making this happen. So I'm one of the in-house attorneys for the Nature Conservancy, and we had several in-house attorneys doing this. But the heavy lifting in sort of all the hard legal analysis and helping with the structure, Cleary Gottlieb was there as a partner for us throughout. and they were very creative. They were very thoughtful. They really took the time to understand what we were trying to do and help us find solutions that both would enable us to do it, but also mitigate risk to the Conservancy. And I think it's really critical to have thought partners like Cleary involved in projects like this so that you can come up with solutions that address the underlying need.